I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of a mess I never saw coming. My name's Mark, and I was with my wife, Lisa, for almost 7 years. Things weren't perfect, but I thought we had something solid until recently. We'd hit a rough patch like most couples do. We decided to go through a trial separation to give each other some space and clarity. Honestly, I thought maybe it would help us figure out what we really wanted. I figured at worst we'd come back stronger or at least with closure. From the start, Lisa was bitchy about the whole thing. She made it clear she wasn't too worried about our little experiment, as she called it, and that she was free to do whatever she wanted. Classic Lisa, always acting like she was the victim, like I was the one overreacting. She was good at gaslighting, too, twisting everything I said into some kind of attack. She kept insisting I was overthinking stuff, that I was insecure, that she wasn't cheating. I initially bought it. Maybe I wanted to believe her because admitting I'd been wrong about her was too painful. Still, I kept my guard up, watching her moves, trying to catch signs of what I suspected was coming. The first signs were small, little things but enough to raise suspicion. Her phone started blowing up with messages late at night. She'd quickly hide her screen when I walked into the room, and her stories on social media changed. She became more secretive about her whereabouts and started taking her calls in the bathroom or outside, even when we were out in public. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she's just being cautious, or maybe she's just tired of my paranoia. But deep down, I knew better. I felt something was off. I guess the biggest red flag was her attitude, more dismissive, more defensive anytime I brought up our relationship or asked where she'd been. Then came the moment that shattered everything. I was at home, going through her phone while she was in the shower, the usual snooping, I admit, and I found a message thread. It wasn't just innocent texting either. It was clear they were more than just acquaintances. There were plans, flirty messages, even some explicit stuff. My stomach dropped. I read it over and over, trying to make sense of it. The mediator, yeah, that's what she called him, was the one she'd been seeing during our separation. Supposedly, he was just a counselor, but I knew better. The way they spoke, the tone, the timing. It was obvious they'd crossed the line from advice giving to sex. That's when I realized the truth. Lisa had cheated on me with this guy, and she'd been lying to my face this whole time. I couldn't believe I missed it. I thought we were trying to work through things. I thought she was being honest with me, but she was just hiding her real life behind a mask of lies. Finding that message was like getting punched in the gut. Everything I believed in crumbled in that instant. I sat there, trembling, trying to process what I'd just seen. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? Was this just a one-time thing? Or had she been sneaking around the entire time we were apart? I kept thinking about the moments she'd been distant, the nights she'd spent out, the way she'd lied about her schedule. It all made sense. Now, the sudden closeness she'd had with that mediator, her unbiased counselor. Turns out that was a complete lie too. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't just pretend I didn't see it. The anger, the betrayal, it was overwhelming. I remember pacing around the living room, my heart pounding, trying to decide what to do. I knew if I just asked her straight out, she'd deny everything, call me paranoid, or spin some story about how she was confused or lonely. But I didn't want to hear her bullshit anymore. I wanted the truth from her own mouth. When she finally came out of the shower, I was waiting for her in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. I looked her right in the eyes and asked, "Lisa, who the hell is this guy? How long has this been going on?" Her face went pale, but she immediately started lying, of course. She told me it was just a business acquaintance, that they'd only met once or twice, and that I had no right to be jealous because she was just talking to him about our problems. Her voice was bitter, her tone bitchy, like I was the one ruining everything. I could see right through her. She was trying to throw me off, but I knew better now. She'd been cheating. That was all I needed to know. After I caught her in that lie, everything changed. I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. I didn't know whether to feel sick, angry, or just numb. Lisa kept insisting she didn't do anything serious, just talking, and that I was overreacting. She kept calling me paranoid, saying I was insecure and jealous, that I was destroying what we had over a stupid misunderstanding. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I saw through her bullshit. She'd been lying for months, maybe longer, and now she was trying to gaslight me into doubting what I knew was true. I stayed quiet that night, but the fire in my chest wouldn't let me rest. I kept replaying everything I just uncovered. How could she be so reckless? How could she betray me like this after all we'd been through? I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. The worst part, she had that bitchy look in her eyes, like she was the victim now, like somehow I was the one who's crazy for suspecting her. That attitude made my blood boil. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. I needed time to think, to plan, to figure out what I really wanted out of all this chaos. The next day, I started digging. I knew she was lying about the nature of her relationship with the mediator. I'd seen enough to know it was more than just a counseling thing. I decided to do my own research, look into that guy Mark, I think his name was, and see if I could find any proof of what had been going on. I wanted to catch her in another lie, or maybe even get some proof that could hold up if I decided to confront her again. I didn't want to just accuse her blindly. I wanted facts. So I started stalking her social media, checking her messages, and even hacking into her email account. Yeah, I know, desperate times. The more I looked, the more I found. She'd been visiting that mediator's office when she said she was out running errands or seeing friends. Her phone records showed repeated late-night calls, and her text history with him was full of flirtatious messages, suggestive emojis, and plans to meet. I even found some photos she'd taken of herself in her car, texting him while parked at secluded spots. She lied about her whereabouts to my face. It was all right there, proof she'd been lying to me from the start, that she'd been having an affair for weeks, maybe even months. That realization hit me like a punch in the gut. All those nights I'd wondered where she was, all the times I felt she was hiding something, now it made sense. She'd been sneaking around, betraying me behind my back while calling me insecure for suspecting it. I felt sick. I'd been so blind, so trusting. And now I was faced with the brutal truth. Lisa wasn't the woman I thought she was. She was a liar, a cheat, and she'd been using her mediation as an excuse to hide her affair. I couldn't believe I married someone who'd lie so effortlessly, who could look me in the eyes and deny everything even when I had the proof right in my hands. I knew I couldn't let it slide. I had to confront her. Again, but this time I was ready. I had the evidence and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of it. I planned to lay everything out on the table, lay bare what I'd discovered and see what she'd say. I wanted to hear her justify the lies, her betrayal, her cheating. I wasn't sure what I'd do after that, whether I'd fight for us or just walk away. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know the truth anymore. The damage was done, and I had to face what that meant for us. My mind was racing, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being naive. I trusted her, believed in us, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, unfaithful woman who'd lied her way through our separation. And that's when I started planning my next move. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around the betrayal, replaying her lies, her sneaky calls, those damn messages. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal that gnawed at my gut. Honestly, I'd never felt so powerless, yet so furious at the same time. I thought about everything we'd built, all the plans, the future I'd imagined, now shattered by her lies. The worst part, she was still acting like she was the victim, still trying to gaslight me into doubt. That bitchy attitude she had, her contemptuous smirk when I confronted her, made me realize she'd been manipulating me all along. I had to decide what to do next. I knew I couldn't just storm into her face again and start yelling. That wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed a plan, a way to get her to admit the truth or at least reveal her real intentions. I was absolutely certain she'd been cheating during our separation, and I was sick of pretending everything was fine. I needed to get her alone, with no distractions, and really get her to talk. But I also knew I needed evidence, more than just what I'd already found. I wanted recordings, texts, something concrete that I could use if it came to legal or emotional battles later. So I started setting up a trap. I bought a small recording device and hid it in the living room, near the couch where she often sat alone. I figured if she was going to lie again, I'd catch her in the act. I didn't want her to know I was surveilling, at least not until I had everything solid. I also made a plan to check her messages again, see if she slipped up with anyone else, or if she had more plans with that mediator. I knew she was probably trying to cover her tracks, but I was determined to catch her red-handed again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply she'd betrayed me, and I was ready to fight back. In the meantime, I decided to call a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, what I could do if I decided to end things, or even if I wanted to try and save what was left. I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me. How did I get here? Just weeks ago, I believed we were working toward reconciliation. Now, I was uncovering her secret affairs and planning my revenge. I didn't want to be passive anymore. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me. I knew I had to be smart. I didn't want to give her any reason to spin this against me. I needed to stay calm, collected, and ready for whatever her next move might be. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity but also dread. I knew I had to confront her eventually. There was no way I could keep pretending I didn't know. I decided I'd wait until she came home from her errands and then lay everything on the table. I wanted her to see that I had her figured out, that I wasn't some naive fool anymore. I had her texts, her secret meetings, her lies, all laid out plainly, and I was prepared to hear whatever bullshit story she'd spin. I was prepared for her to deny, manipulate, or even get angry. But I also knew that I'd finally be able to stand my ground, knowing I was no longer the victim of her endless lies. As I sat there, scrolling through her messages again, I felt a strange mix of relief and impending doom. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. I knew she'd never admit her guilt easily, but I wasn't going to stop until I made her face the truth. And whatever came. After that, whether I fought to save what little was left of us or walked away, I knew I'd never let her lie to me again. I only hoped I was ready for the fallout, because I had a feeling the truth was just the beginning of a much darker story. I didn't sleep much that night, even with everything laid out in front of me. My mind kept racing, imagining all the ways she might try to spin this or deny it outright. Lisa's the type to lie her way out of anything. She's manipulative, bitchy, and she's had a lifetime of practice at twisting stories to serve herself. I knew she'd try to gaslight me again, make me feel like I was the crazy one for suspecting her, but I was done falling for her bullshit. I had the evidence now, and I was more than ready to confront her. When she finally got home that afternoon, I was already sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV. She walked in, all smiles and casual, like nothing had happened. She's good at that, acting innocent, making herself look like the victim. But I could see right through it. I was calm, almost cold, as I looked her in the eyes and said, "Lisa, we need to talk. I've seen the messages. I know about the affair." Her eyes widened for a split second, then that smug, bitchy smile returned. "What are you talking about, Mark? You're jumping to conclusions. You're paranoid," she said, her voice sharp. She played innocent, like I was the crazy one for bringing this up, but I wasn't having it. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots, proof of her flirty texts, plans to meet, messages where she told him she missed him. I laid it all out calmly but firmly. "This is what I found. Why did you lie to me? How long has this been going on?" She looked at the screen, her face twisting into a mix of anger and contempt. "First of all, that's not what it looks like," she snapped. "You're just jealous and insecure. That guy is just a counselor. I was trying to work things out and he was giving me advice. You're overreacting as usual." Her words were a lie. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to hide her guilt behind a wall of bitchy defiance. I pressed her further, demanding the truth. But she kept spinning more bullshit, claiming that everything was innocent, that I'd misunderstood, or that I was just projecting my insecurities onto her. I started feeling my anger boil over. How dare she sit there and lie to my face after I'd found all this? How could she be so manipulative? That's when I saw the true depth of her cruelty, her ability to lie so easily, to pretend everything was fine even as she was screwing around behind my back. I knew I had to cut through her lies. I told her I was done playing her game, that I had enough evidence to end this, to walk away. I told her I didn't want to be with someone who could lie to me so effortlessly, who could cheat and then blame me for feeling betrayed. Her face darkened and she started yelling. Said I was overreacting, that I was the one causing problems, that I was trying to control her. She accused me of being paranoid, jealous, insecure, just like she always did when she wanted to dismiss my feelings. But I wasn't listening anymore. I could. Listen, I knew what I saw, and I knew I'd been blind for too long. I told her she had a choice: come clean, admit everything, or I'd walk out that door and never look back. Her bitchy attitude only made me more furious. She snapped back that I was just crazy, that she'd never cheat, and that I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle the truth. That moment was like breaking a dam. All the pent-up hurt and rage came rushing out. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulation, her cheating, that I deserved better than a woman who lied to my face and used me. I told her I was done with the whole charade and I was going to leave her that night. I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I was done being the fool who trusted her. I told her I'd be taking everything, our house, the savings, whatever I could, and I'd start over. I was hurt, angry, and broken, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. Like I was finally waking up from a nightmare I'd been trapped in for too long. She yelled, called me names, tried to guilt-trip me, but none of it mattered. I'd seen enough. I knew I'd never trust her again. Her lying, cheating ass had destroyed whatever little faith I had left in the marriage. As I gathered my things, I looked her in the eyes one last time and said, "Don't bother calling me. Don't come looking for me. I'll be gone by morning." I left that night knowing I was finally free from her bullshit, but the ache in my chest was still there. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful process of healing, something I hadn't expected but couldn't avoid anymore. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. Leaving her felt like ripping off a bandage slowly, painful but necessary. I moved into a small apartment, trying to get some distance from the chaos and her constant lies. Every night, I'd lie awake trying to process what had happened, questioning myself, wondering if I'd missed signs, if I should have done something differently. But deep down, I knew I couldn't go back. Not after discovering she'd been cheating during our supposed separation, lying nonstop, manipulating me until I was blind to her true nature. The worst part was realizing how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd wanted our marriage to work. I kept thinking about all the mornings I'd wake up feeling off, the little lies she told, the times she was dismissive or bitchy for no real reason. I dismissed the signs because I wanted to believe she was faithful, that she loved me. But her actions, those messages, her secret meetings, her dismissive attitude, made it clear she'd been using me as a backup plan or just passing time while she screwed around. I started to see the full scope of her manipulations. She'd always been good at twisting things around, making herself the victim, shifting blame onto me for everything. When I confronted her, she played the poor me card, crying, acting helpless, saying I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle the truth. But I knew better now. I could see her for what she was, a bitchy, selfish woman who thought she could get away with anything. And she did for a while. I reached out to a lawyer to understand my options, what I could do if I decided to divorce, or how to protect myself legally and financially. Honestly, I didn't want to drag this out any longer than necessary. I'd been betrayed in the worst way and I was exhausted. Every day brought a new wave of emotional pain, anger, and regret. I felt like I was living in someone else's nightmare. Still, I knew I had to get my life back on track piece by piece. I also started seeing a therapist just to ground myself. Talking about everything helped, even if it was painful. I'd never been so vulnerable, so raw. I had to accept that I'd trusted Lisa blindly, that I'd given her my heart and she'd thrown it away. And I had to learn how to forgive myself for not seeing the signs sooner. She'd been the girl I thought I knew, but she was something entirely different. A liar, a manipulator, a woman who used her mediation as a cover for her affairs. In the quiet moments, I'd think back on the times I ignored my gut, brushed off the little red flags because I didn't want to believe she was capable of such betrayal. Now I knew better. I'd been blind, but I was anymore. The betrayal cut deep and it changed me. I realized I'd been put through a trial I never wanted, but I was starting to see it as a wake-up call. I had to rebuild my trust in myself, learn to be cautious, and most importantly, value my own happiness more than I ever had before. I'd be lying if I said I was completely healed. I'm not. But each day I take small steps forward. I remind myself that I deserve honesty, respect, and loyalty, not lies and betrayal. I've come to accept that some people aren't meant to stay in your life forever, no matter how much you want them to. And as much pain as this has caused, I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. Because at the end of the day, the biggest lesson I learned is that trust isn't something you should give blindly, especially not to someone who shows you their true colors when you're not looking. Looking back now, I realize how much this entire ordeal has changed me, maybe even saved me in some strange way. I used to think love meant trusting blindly, giving someone everything without question. But now, I see that true trust isn't blind. It's earned and maintained through honesty, respect, and loyalty. Lisa's betrayal shattered that illusion, but it also forced me to confront what I truly deserve. I learned the hard way that some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate regardless of how much you want to believe in them. I've come to accept that I can't control other people's actions, only my reactions. And even though I still feel anger and disappointment, I've started to forgive myself for the times I ignored my instincts. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what she did. It's about freeing myself from the grip of that pain and regret. I understand now that I was naive, but that doesn't mean I'll stay that way. I'll be more cautious with my heart, more selective in who I trust. Most importantly, I've learned that I deserve someone who values me, who treats me with honesty and respect, not someone who lies and cheats behind my back. No one should accept betrayal as part of the package, because it's not. I've also realized that life goes on, no matter how much it hurts in the moment. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it dulls the sharpness of pain. And when you focus on rebuilding yourself, you find strength you never knew you had. Now I'm not perfect. I still get angry at her memory, at the betrayal, but I refuse to let her define my future. I've started dating again, slowly, cautiously, and I've learned to be more honest with myself about what I want and what I won't accept. I don't hold any resentment toward her anymore. I just see her as a chapter in my story, one that I've closed. The lessons I've learned from her, about trust, about boundaries, about self-respect, are invaluable. So if there's one thing I'd want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Don't ignore your gut. When something feels off, trust that feeling. Don't let anyone manipulate or gaslight you into thinking you're overreacting, because the truth always comes out in the end. And when it does, you'll either be empowered to walk away or ready to fight for what you truly deserve. I chose to walk away, and honestly, I feel freer now than I ever did when I was blindly trusting someone who only used me. This experience has made me stronger, more aware, and more determined to protect my peace. Life isn't always easy, but I know now that I have the power to choose how I respond to the chaos. And I choose to rebuild, to heal, and to never let anyone make me feel small again. That's the final lesson I'll carry with me. Trust yourself first, and never settle for less than you deserve.